Now, the first rumours of a so-called Wagner Group emerged in 2015 in rather random circumstances in Libya, where notions of a alternative or PMC, private military contractor, were present, fighting on behalf of the what was left of pro-Gaddafi groups against what was known as the TNC, or transnational government, that was backed by the US and UN. But it wasn't until a few years later, for 2018, when Wagner became much more present and confirmed, when it entrenched itself in the Central African Republic, for President then Touadéra, fighting rebels and crucially grabbing mining concessions, a common theme we'll pick up as we go through this video. Now, in Mali, Wagner became the partner of choice after a string of coups pushed out the French in the early 2020s, where they have been present since 2013, fighting Islamic jihadists as part of a coalition of forces, including a UN force, which wrapped up a couple of years ago. Due to the remnants of what was France's activities in West Africa, they were quickly dispelled by the then Malian government, with a deal being straightforward for the Russians. Wagner's brutality quickly became clear and was also notorious. Human rights groups, the UN, documenting massacres not from just the Islamic jihadists, but Wagner themselves, also extrajudicial killings and torture. But for many rulings elite, Wagner offered what Western troops could not: immediate, no questions asked support, without any lectures of democracy, human rights, or having to be aware of a fairer society for the citizens of Mali. The ongoing coups that occurred across the west of Africa, or otherwise known as the Sahel, meant that optics mattered in Mali and how it spelt across. Protesters waved Russian flags and carried banners saying "Thank you, Wagner," when French troops departed. Russia presented itself as this anti-colonial partner, the liberator from Western arrogance, hypocrisy, and many themes we hear mentioned in pro-Putinist camps. But the uncomfortable truth is this: Wagner achieved tactical victories, yet strategically the security situation plateaued, if anything actually worsened. Jihadists spread further, attacks grew larger and more bold, and civilian casualties only mounted. It's only in the past few months when more information has come to light about the atrocities done in the past year that I've been able to make this long-standing video that I've been meaning to for all these months. In the run-up to the 2023 period, Wagner was most effective. But then June 23 came around. Prigozhin, Wagner's bombastic leader, launched a mutiny against Moscow. 2 months later, he was dead in a plane crash. Suddenly, the Wagner brand was toxic. Moscow needed a replacement very quickly, not only for performances based on military terms, but also the optics based on diplomatic ones. So along came what was called Africa Corps. You see, unlike Wagner, the Africa Corps is officially under Russia's Ministry of Defense. It recruits ex-Wagner fighters, but places them alongside elite Russian officers. Even the branding, Africa Corps, sounds more like a Western terminology for a military branch, not something that you'd find disposed from the Kremlin. Moreover, its Telegram channels, projecting the image of discipline and control, not the rogue mercenary outfit and sense of hysteria or just meme culture that you might see on other accounts of Telegram. But let's be clear. This is, of course, cosmetic. The Africa Corps still provides exactly the same services: regime protection, battlefield support, training, just under this new branding. And the real purpose is to give Moscow an even greater degree of plausible deniability and a fresh start. Putin distancing himself from those darker days of Prigozhin's pushback and what seemed like a real scare for the Kremlin at the time. While Russia has operations or an attempt to be on the ground, so to speak, across the continent, Mali is ground zero for not just presence, but this neo-experiment. Around 2,000 Russian fighters exist in Mali at some estimates, although this seems a bit low, in my opinion. Far fewer, whether we take this number at face value, than the 5,000 troops that was once deployed, or the 12,000 peacekeepers who left the coup and were managing this mission, which was considered by the UN the most deadly at the time. And for a time, these optics seemed to work. From the late 2010s until early 22-23, the junta, led by Assimi Goïta, paraded early wins like the recapture of Kidal and even staged the symbolic return of Timbuktu's manuscripts in 2024 as proof that Wagner had restored security. But the reality is far bleaker. Deaths linked to jihadists average now 3,000 per year since 2022, compared to under 800 annually. And we're not just talking about military or combat death, it's non-combatant civilian deaths. Nearly 2,000 people have been killed this year, and the jihadist network, known as JNIM, is expanding into new hubs like Cairns, a maiden trade artery towards the much more economically active and prosperous Senegal. Wagner's methods, or Africa course, involve massacres, blockades, open-air prisons, and these have alienated any remnants of support by Malians. In the past year, 80% of civilians have been caused not by jihadists, but by Wagner and Malian soldiers themselves. Informants have dried up, communities are radicalizing, and separatists are now, if anything, joining jihadists in a broad coalition against not just Bamako, but Moscow. More with a conceited awareness that Russia's sort of liberation of Western colonialism is nothing different, just a newer form, and if anything, far harsher. Indeed, tensions inside Mali's army are also exploding. Dozens of generals were purged in August of this year for criticizing Wagner's brutality. Soldiers complain that the Russians treat them with racism, seize equipment, and demand evacuation priority. Scenes that we've seen across other parts, not just of Africa, but in the Middle East. And as one Malian official has put it, we have gone from the frying pan into the fire. Even Wagner's economic footprint is kind of crap. Unlike in Car, Mali's junta has resisted handing over its major gold mines. Attempts to seize artisanal mining have failed. And increasingly, Moscow is footing the bill directly, a costly war drain for a sanction-strangled war economy, which, as we cover countless times, is not exactly doing well. And if they can't seize their acquisition on new gold deposits, what do? They start selling their own reserves, something you can watch in another video in the description below. Bottom line is that public support has collapsed. Where once Wagner flags were filled with Bamako support, ordinary Malians now grumble that Russia has lost 80% of its popularity, and that disappointment is only heightening. Some even saying that they long for the years of European, or at least more broadly, Western presence.